Another ICC event, another Champions Trophy, another loss in the semi-final for South Africa. It has become a continuing saga. Whenever there's an ICC event, South Africa, how will they lose? Will they choke? Will they be beaten in a big way? Now it is no longer a joke. Now it is no longer even worth debating. Because whenever they reach the knockout stages, South Africa always tend to collapse. David Miller was the lone shining star, 100 of 67, but we all know the broader consequences of the knock. It felt very, very empty. You were already losing the match. You had already lost the match. And that is why you got a milestone. Great first ever ton against New Zealand. But David Miller has blasted the ICC after this knock. Because remember, the semi-final fracas that happened, 2nd March, India and New Zealand were playing. 4th and 5th were the semi-finals. Just a day's gap. And then South Africa's match was on 1st. They then had to travel to Dubai, awaiting what needed to be done. When New Zealand lost, India was first. Then you realize that yes, South Africa will have to go back to Lahore to face New Zealand. This scheduling arrangement has been blasted by David Miller. And he mentioned after the match, it's only an hour and 40-minute flight. But the fact that we had to do that was not ideal. Look at it. South Africa finished their game in the night against England in Karachi. They then had to come in the morning to Dubai. Moment the match ended, they had to return back to Pakistan. Then their semi-final was scheduled on the 5th. But the constant traveling, they also traveled to certain venues. They traveled to Rawalpindi, they were there in Lahore, they then traveled to Karachi, then they have traveled to Dubai. Traveling to countries, that too in a space of one day, it will take a toll, no matter whatever way you look at it. He mentions the ordeal that is there, and that is why I totally agree with David Miller that this was not an ideal situation. He mentions the ordeal. It's early morning, it's after a game, and we had to fly. So they didn't travel in the night, they had to travel early morning. Then we get to Dubai at 4 p.m. and at 7:30 a.m. we had to come back. It doesn't make it nice. I mean, you ensured that South Africa had a tour across the Arabian Sea, not for sightseeing, not for anything else. Everybody can't be like New Zealand. A gentleman team will say, okay, we can't complain. We have to play what it is. If there is a legitimate gripe, there is a legitimate gripe. And ICC will have to ensure that this doesn't happen again. Because it doesn't make for good cricket whatsoever. You're tiring out the rest of the teams by making them travel. One team gets the advantage. Although, the other side of that advantage is because the original agreement had India playing only in one city irrespective. But then, why was this done? Miller again mentioned, it's not like we flew 5 hours and we had enough time to recover and recuperate, but it was not an ideal situation still. Okay, only 100 minutes. That was the flight time from Karachi to Dubai. But then after that, you are made to wait, the logistics, taking your kit out, then getting to the hotel, waiting what's going to happen. It's done, you go back. This kind of logistical nightmares, if it was 5-6 hours, then South Africa would have just said, okay, we concede the semi-final. What do we do then? This kind of a situation is just not up to the mark. And David Miller mentioned that in the final, both are incredible teams. India have been outstanding for years. It's going to be a great game. I think I'll be supporting New Zealand. So David Miller has his choice that he will be supporting New Zealand. India versus New Zealand, it is again going to be the clash of 2000. Will New Zealand get their 2nd title? Will India get for a 3rd title? But this entire fracas, what has happened is that only one entity will be very happy when they win. If the other entity wins, then the world will rejoice. Now you draw your conclusions as to who wants to win and who will be happier, what the world will be happier with if that entity wins. India's political and financial clout, the financial clout in particular in cricket, is worrying. Yes, Politics, you can't do anything about it because Pakistan had a very big role in it. Pakistan had a huge role, and that's why you have to blame Pakistan for this entire situation. But the greed for broadcasters, the greed for money has ensured that other teams are just thrown away by the wayside. And this is something that the ICC will have to do it, because if you listen to broadcasters and if you keep one team only as the focus, then I'm sorry, cricket will not grow. And this is a harsh lesson that the ICC will have to learn in 2025. Thank you so much, folks, for joining us for this video. Subscribe to Sports Today for all the latest news and analysis.